What is going on, YouTube? I made a little video about split grade printing, some of the main benefits of it, and how it can be used. It was something that was requested in the comments, so let's just get right into it. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Matthew. I'm a photographer in the Green Bay area. The goal of this channel is to keep the darkroom alive, keep film alive alongside digital photography. I grew up kind of during the film and digital transition, but it was still very hard for me to find information and resources, and I still have to dig around and look when I want to figure out how to do something. I have to dig on the internet. I have to find old books and things like that. So I wanted to put together a resource that younger people or anybody that really wants to learn more advanced or even basic darkroom techniques could come in and get a grasp on this stuff. So what is split grade printing? It is a method of printing where you use two or more different filters. Typically you would use a very low contrast filter and then print with a very high contrast filter. And this is using variable contrast printing paper. Typically you would start with the softest grade or the lowest contrast, which is a 0. I have this set of Kodak Polymax filters. Their lowest is the -1. And what you do is you lay down a base exposure, and then you would, on top of that, kind of add the contrast in with, in this case, it's a +5. Now, I'm not going to use these. I'm going to use my enlarger head. It has the contrast filters built into it. It's a dichroic LPL enlarger. So I can just turn down to the lowest contrast and then turn back up. So there are a lot of pros and cons to this. One of the biggest benefits, or one of the biggest pros, would be that you can locally adjust the contrast. On a single print, you can have part of the print higher contrast, part of the print lower contrast. And what that allows you to do is really draw the viewer's eye in. Your eye is always going to go to parts of a print that are higher in contrast. So if you keep that in mind, you can basically draw the eye in really well by adjusting the contrast on the print. The other thing that I really love about doing split grade printing is sometimes you're trying to print a negative and it's just, you can't really tell if the contrast is right for one reason or another. So what this allows you to do is see all the different options that you have, because you're going to see all the tones in it from the highest contrast to the lowest contrast, and then you can make a judgment on what you want to do with the print from there. So I would say one of the cons is it takes a little bit longer. Instead of doing like one test strip to get your base exposure, you basically have to do two. You have to do a test strip of the lower contrast and a test strip of the higher contrast over the top of that. Or you could do the higher contrast and vice versa. And it can also make it a little bit more complicated. But if you take good notes and just kind of do it methodically, it can have a lot of really good benefits. So let's get started. I picked a negative I had shot of my daughter. I took this on my Hasselblad. It is of her running away in a sunflower field. So I wanted to do this because it was kind of not a real difficult negative, and I wanted to show you how you can kind of put emphasis on the subject through dodging the lower contrast exposure. So I'm gonna walk you through that, so let's go ahead and get started. The negative is in the enlarger already. So the basic idea is to print with a low contrast filter, then with a high contrast filter, and kind of split the difference in between the two to get the best contrast for the image. So one way you can do that is with these contrast filters, and with this enlarger I would just simply take this and set it underneath the lens, but this enlarger head does have the filters built in, so I'm gonna do it that way. So we're gonna get everything focused up, and then we're just gonna jump right into this. I'm not gonna put a lot of video of getting things set up and everything. I just wanna go right into the meat of it and show you exactly how the split contrast printing is done. So let's get started. So the enlarger is set up. I have this at f11. What I'm gonna do first is I have the variable contrast head set on the lowest filter, which is 00. There's a 0 and then there's like a line below it. So I'm going to the least contrast that I can print with this head with the filters in here. So that's what we're gonna do first. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the paper in here. And what I am going to do, and what I like to do, is just set the metronome or the beep on my timer, and basically just use a card to go along, but you move the card every 2 seconds. So let me show you what I mean by that. And I just use this as a shutter a lot of the time. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do this with the lowest contrast filter. So I have this filter head dialed up all the way down to 0. So it's gonna be a very yellow light. I'm gonna do 2 seconds, 4 seconds, all the way up to 14 seconds. And that's gonna give me a good range. And what I'm doing is laying down the highlights. So I wanna try and find a happy medium for the highlights. So let's go ahead and do that. And again, I'm just going to use the card as an aperture. So right now the paper is completely covered up. So what I'm going to do is just move the card every 2 seconds. So ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I cut that in front as the aperture, because a lot of people will say too that it's hard to do this with a color head or a variable contrast head, because if this light's off, you can't see anything on the enlarger. But all I have to do is keep this card underneath here, and there's no exposure hitting the paper, and then I can go ahead and in between I can change it to the red, or the higher contrast I should say. So that's how you do that. And the other thing, you can use a color head for this too. And what you're gonna wanna do is for the lowest contrast, I always just dialed up the yellow. I left the magenta and the blue at 0 and dialed up the yellow on my Omega enlarger up to 170, or all the way up on the yellow. And then I would turn it all the way back down and turn the magenta all the way up for the hard contrast exposure. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this developed. Again, I'm not gonna waste your time watching me develop the print, but I will show you what it looks like, and then we'll go from there. So let's take a look. All right, so here's the print. I squeegeed it and put it on the rack here. So this is gonna be 2 seconds, 4 seconds, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14. And as you can see, it's a really low contrast rendition of the image. And so what you're gonna wanna do is try and find the highlights of where you think you wanna lay the highlights down, and then just back it off just a little. So I'd go 2, 4, 6. I would go between 6 and 8 seconds to start. So I think what we'll do is just go with 6. We're gonna do a print with 6 seconds with the low contrast filter of 0, and then we're gonna go ahead and do a test print on top of that with 2-second intervals of the high contrast filter. So let's go ahead and do it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that 6 seconds and do a base exposure of the whole print at 6 seconds, and then we're gonna go 2 seconds, 4 seconds, up to 14 seconds with the high contrast filter. And that's gonna give us a test strip to judge where we wanna print the blacks in. I'm gonna change the contrast all the way back down to the low contrast. Get this started. Then we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I'm gonna change this head up to and you wanna be careful you're not being you don't wanna move the head or get it out of focus or anything, so you gotta be a little bit careful. But otherwise you could just switch the filter underneath the lens, or sometimes they have a tray over as well. So now we're gonna do the same thing with the hard light. On the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Find the pedal and good to go. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this developed, and then we'll take a look at it. All right, so now you can see where this is printing in the blacks. So this was a 6-second exposure with the yellow filter, the 0, the lowest contrast. And then we went 2 seconds, 4 seconds, 6 seconds, 8 seconds, 10, 12, 14. So it looks like, right about 6 to 8 seconds. And I think I might want to up the contrast a little bit. And to do that, we can basically go less on the lower contrast filtration. So it looks like a 6 and a 6. I'm gonna print a 6 and a 6 of both, just to show you what that's gonna look like. Because this is 6 and 6 in the middle, and that looks pretty good. But I think I might want to do a few things, and then I'll show you how we can tweak this and dodge and burn to bring the viewer's attention into the picture a little bit more. So I like the way 6 seconds with the soft grade filter and 6 seconds with the hard grade filter kind of looked on there. And we'll probably have to tweak it a little bit from there, but let's do a straight print across with the hard and the soft. to see what that looks like. And it doesn't matter the order you do this in either. So I believe the hard filter was on first, so we'll just do it that way. So we're gonna go 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we'll change the filter to the soft. And we'll do 6 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We'll go ahead and get this developed and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so here is the print with 6 seconds of the hard filter and 6 seconds of the soft filter. So that looks pretty good, but I think I wanna bring out a little bit more contrast. So what I'm gonna do to do that, so if you wanna increase contrast at this point, I'm gonna go 4 seconds with the soft and then keep 6 seconds with the hard. And what that's gonna do is reduce the kind of the soft layer, which is gonna increase the contrast. And then the other cool thing that we can do, which I'm pretty sure I'm gonna do, is what I'm gonna do is just take and dodge her, my daughter running through the field, and just a little bit in this path. And what that's going to do, it's going to increase the contrast on her and on leading up into that. And that's going to kind of draw your eye in, because like I said, your eye is always drawn to the parts of the image that are most contrasty. And then I think too, I'm going to kind of explore the sky a little, and I don't want it to be like overly dramatic. It was kind of a cloudy day, and I don't want to burn it in to make it real moody. I want to keep it a little bit lighter in area of a picture if I can. So that's why I think I'm gonna up the contrast and brighten up the print just a little bit. Forgot to mention too, so I'm printing these all on Ilford multi-grade classic fiber-based glossy, and I'm developing them in Ilford multi-grade developer diluted 1:9. So now I'm gonna do a print with 4 seconds with the soft filter and 5 seconds with the hard filter. I think I'm gonna like that a little bit better. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we'll go 6 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right, so this is the one that I just printed with the 4 seconds with the soft filter, and this is the one with the 6 seconds. So I know it's kind of hard to see, but there's definitely, it's a little bit brighter, a little bit, got a little bit more contrast to it. And then this is the one that, the 6 and the 6. And what I do like is there's a little bit, you can see the sky a little bit better in this one. So what I'm gonna end up doing is now I'm gonna show you how you can kind of manipulate the low contrast and the high contrast. And I'm not gonna do much with the high contrast, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put, during the soft grade exposure, I'm gonna put an ND filter underneath to extend the timeout, and then I'm gonna dodge her in this little path area, and then I'm gonna take and burn down the sky with the low contrast filter. And what that's gonna do is dodging this area is gonna enhance the contrast, which is gonna draw your eye in there a little bit more. And then I'm gonna burn down the sky to just make that a little bit more pleasing. So let me show you how that works. So now I wanna make sure I have everything set right. So I'm gonna put it at the lowest contrast. I'm gonna put this underneath the filter, 2-stop ND filter. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna take my card here, block this up, get my dodging tool all set. The filter's on the low contrast filter, and so during this I'm gonna dodge for 2 seconds. So we'll go ahead. Now I'm gonna go ahead and burn the sky in for 4 seconds, then feather it up for 2 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2 to feather it up. Now I'm gonna take the ND filter out from underneath the lens, dial the filtration in all the way to the other side, and then I'm gonna give it 6 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there we go. So here is the final image, and if you notice, she's got a little bit more contrast on her, so it really, and when you look at the picture, it really draws you into her, and that's what I wanted. And like I said, I like how the rest of it is. So I think just looking at this briefly, I'm gonna have to let it dry because a lot of times there is some dry down, but I think that looks pretty good. All right, that's gonna wrap it up for this video. Thanks for watching. Here is what the final print actually looks like. I know it's gonna be kind of hard for you to see, plus it's all curled up, but like I said, your eye just kind of gets drawn into the center because there's a little bit more contrast there. So I feel that split grade printing has many benefits. As you can see, it's very powerful, and it's only limited by really your imagination and what you want to come up with as far as changing the local contrast in a print. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the subscribe, especially if you want to see new videos on photography, darkroom printing, and just creative inspiration in general. That's gonna wrap it up, and yeah, we'll see you next time.